Hello everyone, and welcome to another video. I'm glad I found time to make this video actually, because earlier on today I was playing around with the Corsair iQ software and making it show the blue screen of death on my Corsair Elite LCD display, just to confuse people who are using my PC. So, what we will be doing today in this video, as you can probably tell based on the title, is using this here 2015 MacBook Pro to do some gaming. Now, this is not the first time I made a video like this. I made a video a long while back where I was testing my 2007 decrepit Windows laptop to play some games, but this time around we're using the 2015 MacBook. And of course, MacBooks were never even meant to play games to begin with. So we'll see how well this thing fares. So yeah, I'm going to be testing several different games in this video, and I am going to be recording externally and without an FPS counter, just to minimize a load on the laptop and to give it as good of a chance as possible. So one actually peculiar thing about this particular laptop is that even though it is a MacBook Pro, like it was made as one, it actually is not running Mac OS anymore. And the reason for that is, well, it's actually running Pop! OS, which is a Linux distro. That's what's running on here natively, not in a virtual machine. And the reason why it's running Linux distro is because a while back I was having this issue with the laptop where suddenly the trackpad and the keyboard would both just stop responding for no clear reason at all. And the only way to get them to work again was to restart the laptop, but then eventually that stopped working too. So I put Pop! OS on here, and I've been using this laptop for a while now with Pop! OS on it before I even conceived of the idea to make this video. So we're going to be testing it with Pop! OS on here. I'm not putting Mac OS back on here. When I use Pop! OS on this laptop, I do not have the issues with the trackpad and the keyboard at all. So it's clearly somehow related to the operating system. So yeah, a while back I just decided to install Pop! OS. It's been running Pop! OS ever since, and to get the games to run, I'm using Wine, which is an application that some of you might be familiar with. And Wine serves the purpose of allowing you to run Windows applications on Linux. So that's the way that I'm going to be running these games on this laptop. Just a little bit of a disclaimer for the know-it-alls in the comment section. Yes, I know that this thing was never meant for gaming. I'm just saying that because in another of the videos where I was testing the 2007 laptop, someone told me that, as though I didn't know. But yes, of course I know it's not meant for gaming. This video is just for fun, so that's a disclaimer. We're just going to see what it can do. And also another note I'd like to put in, I don't really want to endorse Apple because I'm not a fan of their products really overall. The only reason I have this laptop and I use it is because I have another laptop actually, but it's way bulkier and it's just not that convenient to use like when I'm bringing it everywhere. So I just use this one from time to time because of that, and it's running Linux anyway. So the games I'm going to be testing are Crusader Kings 3, Fallout New Vegas, the first Witcher game, Half-Life 2, Anno 1701, and finally, Crysis. Can it run Crysis? That is the question. And anyway, I think it's an appropriate one because it'll be interesting to see what a game that came out in 2007, being super demanding and too advanced for even gaming computers at the time, what that game will be able to do against this thing, which came out 8 years after Crysis did, but which was never meant for gaming because it's a MacBook. Alright, with that out of the way, without further ado, let's get into the core of the video. So let's start by going over the specs of the laptop in question. So as I said, this is a model from 2015. The CPU in here is an i5-5257U. Wow, that's a mouthful. and it runs at 2.7 gigahertz. And FYI, that is a 2-core chip with hyperthreading though. So 2 cores, 4 threads. Now, one thing that's going to hold it back the most is that this laptop has integrated graphics. It does not have a dedicated graphics card. And then we have 8 gigabytes of RAM, which I don't think is going to be a huge issue here because it's going to be held back more by the CPU and especially the integrated GPU than it will by the RAM. And then it has a 128 gigabyte SSD, which did not seem so tiny when I bought it, but now is hardly enough to store one game when we're talking about huge AAA games that came out recently. Alright, that's it for the specs. Okay, so this is CK3 running, actually. It's doing surprisingly well considering the age of this MacBook. I mean, honestly, the FPS at certain times is not even that bad, but like for this type of game, it's at certain times it seems almost playable. Like if I'd have to estimate, maybe 25 FPS, which is certainly I would say enough to play this game if you really want to and you have no other way, just because of the nature of this particular game. But when you start scrolling around and going into menus, it really lags and it freezes for minutes, and that's what really makes it almost unplayable at certain times. Like, just trying to show you guys, but right now it's doing okay-ish. So yeah, not the best experience, but honestly, a little bit better than I was expecting, not gonna lie. So I tested the time that this game took to launch from when I double-clicked on the exe file to when it actually got me into the game and not just to the title screen. And that time was about 3 minutes and 16 seconds. So it was kind of ridiculous. I mean, this game does typically take a little bit to load, but yeah, it was kind of crazy how long this game took, although I wouldn't be surprised if some of the others take even longer that we're going to be testing today. So yeah, there's a bit of freezing up, but other than that, the FPS would be okay, but the freezing up really takes away from the game. And yeah, you see I just clicked on France and it took like way too long for that even to pop up, and it's going to be like if you're trying to do things quickly in war, I mean, it's going to be a hindrance, but yeah, it's not, it could be a worse experience, honestly. So I don't have the FPS counter because I don't want to bog down the machine any more than it already is. But it's, you know, maybe 25 FPS when it's not freezing up and lagging. I would say this is playable because my standard of playable is going to be pretty low for this video, and I would say, yeah, I would call this playable just because technically if you really wanted to play this game, yes, you could play it like this. It's not completely broken, and it hasn't crashed at all during the time that I've been testing it. So I would give this a verdict of playable, although it's definitely near the margin right there. Okay, next up here we have Anno 1701. So I know what you're thinking. Where is everything? Why does the game look like this? It's just pretty much a blank screen except for the UI. And that is because during installation, it said that there was a file missing. I got an error message, even though I tried many times to install it, and I wasn't able to get away from that error message. So I eventually just figured I'd boot up the game like this, since that's what this laptop could do at the moment, apparently. So yeah, this is what it is. I did take the time that it took to load, and it was about 1 minute and 23 seconds. That's actually extremely long considering that it had pretty much nothing to load. I can't get any of them to open right now, but when I was looking at the menus before, it was just complete gibberish. Like, it says null in tiny letters over the settings wheel instead of settings. So yeah, there's basically no content here, as you could see. In terms of FPS, I mean, I guess it's high, judging by the mouse pointer, but that's because there's nothing on the screen. As I said, there's no FPS counter on. Well, so is it playable or unplayable? This is a pretty easy one. Obviously unplayable, because there's nothing here. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Oh, wait a second, what's going on here? You probably were expecting to see another clip of game footage rather than me again, but unfortunately I have some bad news. So I was going to test 6 titles originally, and as it turned out, only 2 of those even got running, the ones that I just showed you. And as you saw, Anno 1701, obviously that hardly counts as the game actually running, but the other 4 would not even start. Either I ran into some problem during installation, or in the case of 2 of the games, including Crisis and one other one, the game installed fine, but then when I tried actually running it, it just either did nothing, gave me an error message, or immediately crashed, or something like that. And it just turns out I tried troubleshooting and everything, and I tried a number of different things, like different compatibility settings for Wine software, for example, but there was nothing that could be done. So yeah, only those 2 were able to actually get running. So why didn't I just put macOS back on here and try running the games on macOS? They probably would have worked, at least some of them then, right? Well, here's the thing. I couldn't, because as I explained earlier on in the video, this laptop, I actually put Pop! OS on here originally, not just because I hate Apple, but also because with Mac OS, this thing just completely stopped working. Like the keyboard and mouse did not work at all. And I tried troubleshooting that forever, and then once I put a different OS that was not any version of Mac OS on here, it worked perfectly fine. So it probably has something to do with the company Apple locking down earlier old machines so that people are forced to buy a new one because it's only with Apple software. And yes, if you're watching this, please tell me what's going on. But I will make a video about that if you guys want to see. Tell me down below, because honestly, they are up to some extremely malicious stuff, Apple. I mean, I don't know how they get away with it. So anyway, that's why I was not able to put Mac OS on here. So I had to try using Pop! OS. So then I hear you ask, well, why did you even bother making the video if only 1 and sort of, let's say 1 1/8 of a game actually got running? Well, here's the thing. I was downloading all the games and everything as I was planning out the video, and I was still in the stages of planning out the video, hadn't started recording yet. I tried CK3 just to see, okay, let's see, that's the first one I was going to test. Let's see if this is actually worth doing, if the games are actually going to run or not here on Pop! OS with this ancient hardware. And CK3 ran perfectly fine. Nothing. No error message. And I was surprised by it. I was like, oh, I thought I was going to have to do at least some troubleshooting to run games on Linux with Wine, but nothing. So then I figured, oh, well, if I tried one game and there's absolutely no problem with getting it running, if I try some other older games, they're probably going to run even better. But how could I have been more wrong? It's super weird to me. I don't know why. It's just CK3, no problem. Try some older games that should be even easier to run. All kinds of error messages and stuff. So anyway, that's where we're at, and at least I gave you guys the experience of what actually happened when I tried gaming on here. CK3, I remember I gave it a verdict of playable, but just barely. The other games, no, obviously, nothing. So I do think it would be a good idea, and people would be interested in seeing basically just what happened to me with this laptop and why I was forced to change to Linux, and just to get a sense of more of the evil stuff that Apple is up to. So yeah, I might make a video about that in the future. I'm definitely going to consider that. I feel like that deserves its own video. But anyway, we've seen what this can do in terms of gaming, and sir, not much unless you want to troubleshoot for like 10 hours. I spent several hours troubleshooting myself, so yeah. But the troubleshooting was pretty much to no avail in the end. Troubleshooting and still not finding a solution. That's something I'm very used to at my job. Alright guys, That about covers it today. Thank you all very much for watching. If you're new around here, please do check out my channel and consider subscribing maybe. And either way, I hope I see you all in the next one.